Hello, my friends. Are you guys frustrated today, like I am? I think my passion shined through a little bit too much on the radio this morning. I'm absolutely outraged, and I can't even tell you, words can't even express this. It's just so wrong on so many different levels. As a matter of fact, I'm actually going to be speaking ignorant today because I actually could not step up to watch the speech. There's something about this man when he says his S's. It doesn't sound effeminate necessarily. It sounds like Satan. Something just, when he says that, it reverberates down deep. And it makes it almost impossible for me to be able to listen. And I don't know if anybody else identifies with that or not. And then when I saw on the news this morning with his, with this thing, the sign of the goat, actually I equate that with Satanism too, but I can't really be sure, just what we hear. I wanted to talk about immigration today. The other day I talked a little bit about immigration and about how this is actually going to be used from in a multitude of different aspects. Really just basically to be able to overwhelm the system through the classic Cloward and Piven strategy inherent with the mind of Karl Marx and the Communist Manifesto. And along with the Adam Weishaupt, if any of you know who he is, with the League of Nations. This is all about to obliterate America, its borders, and to be able to exhaust all of the wealth in the United States of America, the free United States of America. But I wanted to talk about some other things. He said that he had the legal authority to do this. And what's really interesting is most people don't pay attention to terminology and how the government has redefined our English language. The question should be, what does legal actually mean? Well, what we'll find out in the legal dictionaries is the fact that legal actually means anything that the legislature creates. So there's this thing called legal and lawful, and what is lawful, it may not always be legal. So he does have the legal authority to do it because he created it. But he doesn't have the lawful authority because it expands beyond the limitations set forwarded to him by the president. And the common excuse is that the Congress wouldn't do anything, so I went ahead and acted anyway. Well, it isn't that Congress didn't actually do anything, or that they had to. The reason why Congress was there and the separations of powers and the checks and balances are there are simply to make the duty difficult between the two branches to further deliberation and prevent the executive branch from doing exactly what he's doing. His hands should be shackled unless the authority is given to him by Congress, except for what he's been expressly given in the Constitution in Article 2. I got a letter this morning from Mike Crapo. He says he's working with Jeff Sessions and he's going to go ahead and create legislation to prevent Obama from passing his executive order. Really? Is that the face of the GOP today? Absolutely it is. We should be ashamed. And it's no wonder the left is upset with us about the Republicans. We Republicans should be fried on this as well. I saw on Facebook page, on Crapo's page, many people are like, "Oh, that's so great, Mike Crapo. You're actually taking action." Taking action, right. So taking legislation would actually be like, he's already trampled the Constitution already, right? So now what we're going to do, and that's supposed to be the supreme law of the land, but we're going to go ahead and write congressional legislation, and that's really going to hold him back. I mean, that's my same argument for the con. We're going to apply to the federal government and give them more power to be able to adhere to the Constitution. Are we on freaking crack or what? I don't really get it. Anyway, the one thing I wanted to bring up a few things, if I can. Besides the fact that this is completely going to destroy America, I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the consequences. And you guys know I have a passion for law enforcement. Many law enforcement may not see it as a loving passion, but it actually is. What happens to the law enforcement? You law enforcement officers out there that might not like me, I love you, man. But what happens to you guys? Cops? So the executive order comes down, the people are pissed because they know that this law was established unlawfully, and they know that it completely undermines American liberty, and yet enforcing the law is something that you're going to do. Forget about the Supreme Court cases that say that any law repugnant to the Constitution is null and void, or any of those things, which actually gave every citizen the discretion to be able to determine a constitution and an unconstitutional law. And after 237 years, really not much chaos came of it. So that's not a very good excuse to use. But law enforcement is going to be putting the legislature or the Congress is going to be putting a target on the head of every law enforcement officer in the country. Likewise, they're going to be putting a target on the head of every citizen in every state in the country. And the animosity is going to increase between citizens and law enforcement in the country. And law enforcement is going to be enforcing the law, and citizens are going to be enforcing the Constitution, because many of law enforcement really don't understand the Constitution, even though they've taken an oath to it. If this isn't a recipe for disaster and absolute chaos, I'm not sure what is. But my law enforcement friends, my fellow citizens, this is not a Bronco nation. This is an American nation in complete decay and spiraling out of control into absolute chaos, with the necessity for government to utilize the only constitutional provision they have to be able to quell civil unrest. So what if the people rise up? Do the people have the right to rise up against the government that completely obliterates their rights? And if they do, to what extent? Or shall government continue to obliterate the freedoms and rights of the people in the name of safety? Does this keep the peace? If law enforcement's job and government was to be able to keep the peace, does this keep the peace? Or is this an agitation to rebellion? And is it on purpose? I submit that it is. But what about the economics of this issue? I want to go through some economic indicators for you I thought were quite interesting. The economic burden of immigration, $11 billion to $22 billion is spent on welfare to illegal aliens every year. $2.2 billion a year is spent on food assistance programs such as food stamps, WIC, and free school lunches for illegal aliens. $2.5 billion a year spent on Medicaid for illegal aliens. $12 billion a year spent on primary and secondary education at the expense of you and I. $17 billion is spent on education for American-born children of illegal aliens. $3 million a day spent on incarceration of illegal aliens. It just makes common sense, didn't he say? 30% of federal prison inmates are illegal aliens. $90 billion is spent on illegal aliens for welfare and social services by the American taxpayer. $200 billion a year are suppressed American wages caused by illegal aliens. During 2005, there were 4 to 10 million illegal aliens that crossed the southern border, also as many as 19,000 illegal aliens from terrorist countries. Millions of pounds of drugs, cocaine, meth, heroin, marijuana crossed the U.S. from the southern border. And you can verify that at the Homeland Security report that I have posted on my website or on my Facebook page. An estimated cost of mass deportation would be between 206 and 203 billion, at an average cost of between 41 and 46 billion annually over a 5-year period. The dark side of illegal immigration is that nearly 1 million sex crimes committed by illegal aliens every year in the United States. Now that's just the economic factors. Now let me go into something I found a little bit earlier. We're going to go over to USC Title 8. The immigrations of law and fact consistent with the Constitution were found in the statutes at large. And the statutes at large were what actually were before the United States Code. We can get into that later. But I guess I'm going to have to do the immigrations of facts in law in my next segment. So stay tuned for that. Thanks, guys. Love you. Bye.